I killed one of them. That night, something came to my door. I should have killed her too. Last night, I killed one of them at the border. 2 rounds, chest, done. And before the blood dried on my hands, a wounded woman appeared at my door in the dark and called me by my real name. A name I had never heard in my life. A name they buried before I was old enough to know it existed. The moment she said it, something inside me, locked for 11 years, slammed against its walls so hard I felt it in my teeth. They gave me a number, not a name. I was Unit 7. Equipment. A thing they pointed at problems and let run. In 11 years, I never once asked what I was killing. I was built not to ask, because I knew it was mine. I had always known. They just buried it. Be honest. Right now. If you were me, you still pull the trigger next time, or you freeze. No middle ground. That one name was going to cost them everything they built. And right then, standing over 32 kills with blood still on my hands, I understood something for the first time. I was not the hunter, I was the hunted. For 11 years, I thought I was protecting people. I was disposing of evidence.
Hello friends, welcome to our story. But before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. United States, Nigeria, or maybe South Africa or Kenya. We want to know.
They called me Unit 7, not a name, a number. Said it the way you say truck, generator, fence. 11 years at Camp Doka. I knew every soldier by face. Not one had ever spoken my name, not because they forgot, because they never tried. I was 7. I was it. I was the thing that went where they would not go. The camp sat at the Sahel's edge, desert in every direction, the kind of place the country only remembered it owned when something needed killing. Beyond the wire, the creatures. I had 31 kills. Command logged them the way you log fuel consumption. I logged them differently, every night, standing outside my quarters, counting, 1 through 31. I was about to find out why that number mattered more than I knew. Major Danladi ran Camp Doka, wide man, flat face, eyes that saw everything and felt nothing. 6 years commanding this outpost. In all that time, I do not believe he once looked at me as something that could bleed. He looked at me the way you look at a rifle. Check the barrel, check the action, point it, fire. He was not afraid of me. He was not impressed by me. I was useful. That was it. The entire sum of what I was allowed to be. The day before everything changed, Danladi held a logistics review. All officers. I stood at the back as always, separated by a distance no one had drawn but everyone maintained. The distance between a man and a tool. Supply Officer Batur read the inventory. Vehicles, weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, water reserves. Then, no pause, no shift in tone, not a single breath of difference, he said, Unit 7, operational status, confirmed. Between the jerrycans and the medical supplies, I was on the equipment list. Nobody reacted, nobody looked in my direction. Because it wasn't strange to them, it was accurate. I stood at the back and looked at 30 heads and felt something pressing in my chest with nowhere to go. Then Gata, loud, always performing, leaned toward the soldier beside him, just loud enough for the room. At least the rifles don't eat. Laughter, easy, relaxed. Danladi didn't turn around, but the corner of his mouth moved. He let it stand. That was the part that cut deepest. Not Gata. Gata was nothing. Danladi letting it stand was confirmation. Official, signed. Yes, that is what it is. You may laugh. I kept my face still, put what I was feeling somewhere deep and locked and dark, and stayed there until the review ended. That night, the cook set out dinner, 2 trays at the main table. Then, at the far end of the same table, a 3rd tray. 3 feet of empty table. A cup of water. Nothing else. Everyone knew whose it was. Nobody said anything. That was the cruelest part. Not that they did it, that nobody said a word, that the 3 feet of empty table required no explanation from anyone. I sat at the end and ate alone. They passed a bottle between them and laughed. 11 years, Every night, 3 feet, 90 centimeters. That was the physical measurement of my place in this world. I finished. I stood. I carried my tray back. As I passed Gata, he yanked both feet from the aisle, fast, deliberate, like contact with me might leave a stain. His whole table saw it. 2 snickered, 1 turned away, but not before I caught the smile. I did not stop walking. I opened my mouth. I closed it. I went outside. I stood in the dark and breathed until the thing in my chest stopped pressing so hard. 11 years of that. That night, for the first time, it did not settle. The briefing came at 9 that night. Danladi's tent, 3 officers around the map. They did not look up when I entered. Danladi tapped the map. Northern perimeter. Something crossed the wire 2 hours ago. Confirmed sighting near the dry riverbed. Pause. Go. No briefing, no backup, no discussion. A beat went by before I asked. 1 beat too long. How large? Danladi looked up. Not at me. At the interruption I represented by having a mouth at all. Near the entrance, a young corporal named Tambari, 3 months in, still trying to understand what this place was, looked at me when I spoke. Something uncertain in his face. Danladi saw Tambari looking. His eyes moved back to the map. 7. Flat, a door closing. Go. I held his face for 1 extra second. He had already moved on. I had already ceased to exist in the room. I went. 40 minutes north, no radio, no water, short-barreled rifle, blade, 3 magazines. I found the creature at the dry riverbed. Large, larger than the last 3. Crouched over something, torn canvas, maybe clothing, and making that sound. I had heard it 31 times. That low, cycling sound, something trying to form a word and losing it before it arrives. I had trained myself not to think about what that meant. I raised the rifle. It felt the pressure change in the air and charged. I fired twice, first shot high on the chest, second shot center. It went down hard, and when it stopped, it made a sound that was not an animal sound. It was the sound of something that had once had a name and no longer knew what it was. I stood over it, wide forehead, jaw sitting wrong, arms a fraction too long, a human body with the measurements changed. I stood there longer than I needed to. Then I turned and walked back. 32. 32 times. A pause. I never once asked what I was shooting. I was cleaning my rifle outside my quarters when I heard it. Not a knock, a scrape, fingernails dragging down the metal door. I had the blade in my hand before I thought about it. I came around the frame fast and low. I had the blade at her throat before she could react. She did not flinch, left arm hanging wrong, dislocated, right hand pressed against her side where her shirt had gone dark and wet. Her face completely steady, like someone who planned for this and was executing the plan. 1 centimeter from her jugular. Her eyes did not move from mine. I could feel her pulse against the flat of the blade. I know what you're deciding, she said. I need 30 seconds first. I pressed the blade forward. She leaned into it. She did not pull back. Something about that, the absolute refusal, made something in me stop. I held position. I gave her the 30 seconds. She looked me in the eyes and she said it. Tunde, not 7, not Unit 7, not the thing they made. My grip on the blade shifted, just slightly, just enough that I felt it, the handle moving a millimeter in my palm. I locked it back down before she could see. The blade was still at her throat. I did not move my hand, but something detonated inside me. Something that had been locked for 11 years in a room with no light and no air suddenly had both. If she knew my name, the system was already broken. And if it was broken, I was no longer safe inside it. That is your name, she said. Not 7, not the unit, not the asset. Your name is Tunde Aliyu. You were born 4 years before they took you, and I knew your mother. I grabbed her by her good arm and dragged her inside, hard. She hit the doorframe, made a sound she immediately swallowed. I pressed her against the inside wall, blade back at her throat. Who sent you? Nobody sent me. I have been looking for you for 11 months. From the other side of the wire. There is no other side. She held my eyes. There is only the system and every person it has destroyed. And you are one of those people. You just don't know it yet. I looked at her face, then I lowered the blade. Not because I trusted her, because the truth she was carrying was already inside the room before she arrived. You cannot kill what is already inside you. I fixed her shoulder first, came at it from behind without warning, fast and clean. I felt the joint seat and I felt her entire body go rigid from the skull down. Her knuckles went white, every muscle in her jaw locked. She did not make a sound, not one sound. My own jaw had tightened without me telling it to. I unclenched it. When it was done, she opened her eyes. "Thank you," she said, not pleasantry. Fact. I pressed a dressing against the wound at her side. She told me her name without me asking. Halima. Outside, somewhere across the camp, a vehicle engine turned over, then cut out. I stopped pressing, listened. Nothing, routine. But I had stopped breathing for 3 full seconds before I knew it. That was new. I went back to the wound. "The things I've been hunting," I said. "Tell me what they actually are." She looked at the side of my face, choosing words. "Start talking," I said. "We don't have time for you to decide how much I can handle." "They have a name." "The Altered." "What program?" "They took people," she said. I nodded. "Modified them." I nodded again. She held my eyes. "And when they broke?" She didn't finish it. She didn't need to. I already knew. My stomach tightened. "They sent me," I said. "Yes." Silence, heavy, thick. I looked at my hands. 32. "They didn't send me to fight enemies," I said. "No." "They sent me to erase them." "Yes." "They took children," she said. I froze, not moved, not reacted, just froze. "Children?" "Yes." "How young?" 4. Something inside me moved, not cracked, moved. "They built them into this," I said. "Yes." "And when they failed?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I stepped back, slow. "How many?" 9 confirmed. 9. I had killed 32. "You said you knew my mother." Halima reached into her shirt, pulled out a small folded cloth, held it toward me. I didn't take it. She set it on her knee. "Open it." I opened it. A photograph, small, creases carved permanent from handling. 2 people, a woman and a small boy. 3 years old, laughing at something outside the frame. The woman was not looking at the camera. She was looking at the boy. I did not have a word for the look on her face. I had been raised without that look ever aimed at me. But I felt it. Then I looked at the boy's face. Wide forehead. Same. Something inside me moved. Not memory. Something deeper. Something buried. I dropped the photo, then picked it up again. My fingers tightened around it. "Where is she?" Halima held my eyes. "She died 8 years ago. She never stopped looking. She was still trying to find you when she died." I stood up. Outside, that vehicle engine turned over again, closer this time. My chest was doing something it had never done before. Short breath, tight jaw, heat behind the eyes I had been trained to suppress. "They told me I was an orphan," I said. "That conflict took my family. They needed you empty, so they emptied you." I walked to the window. She went quiet. She understood. Her exhaustion took her eventually. She fought it. She lost. Her head dropped. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, and I held the photograph in both hands, and I looked at my mother's face until the dark was gone. At some point in the night, I heard boots outside, a patrol route. They passed without stopping. My breath went shallow and wrong before I caught it. I held the photograph and counted the footsteps until they were gone. This was what I had become. A man hiding in a room with his mother's photograph and blood still on his hands from a hunt he should never have been sent on. I counted, 1 through 32. This time the count felt different. When morning came, the camp was normal. Briefing called, soldiers moving, generator running, everything exactly as it had been every morning for 11 years. I stood outside my door and breathed and thought, maybe I have time. Maybe the analysis takes longer. Maybe I can think this through. For a moment, standing in the morning light with the camp moving normally around me, it almost felt like just another day. Somewhere across the compound, a door banged shut. Ordinary sound. I went rigid before I knew it. Then Tambari crossed the compound and looked at me once, just once, passing, and gave the smallest shake of his head. Not later. Now. I went to the morning briefing. Same position, same silence. Danladi ran the overnight report. He reached my kill without looking up. Northern perimeter engagement. Target neutralized. Unit 7 performed as expected. Performed as expected. That was all I was worth. 32 bodies, reduced to 3 words. Not even human enough to be thanked. Just confirmed. Like fuel delivered. Like a machine that didn't break. Gata was near the front. He heard it. He leaned sideways toward the man beside him. Good. Keep it sharp for the next one. Keep it sharp. 3 soldiers heard. 2 smiled. 1 laughed quietly. I stood at the back and let them have it. This morning it hit differently. This morning I had a name, and they didn't know that yet. Danladi stopped me at the exit. Flat assessment eyes, checking for damage, anything that would affect performance. You were gone 4 hours, he said. The target moved northeast before it doubled back. Any other contact? No, sir. He held the look 2 extra seconds. Because he could. Because making me wait was one of the small ways he reminded me that my time was his. Good, he said. He walked away. I stood at the tent exit. Good. Not well done. Not clean work. The word you say to a machine that ran without jamming. My hand was still around the rifle sling. I had not let go of it when I left the tent. I let go now, 11 years of good. At the water tanks that afternoon, Tambari found me. He came alone, checked both directions first. They're running a pattern analysis on your north perimeter route from last night. Danladi requested it this morning. Why are you telling me this? He looked at his hands, then back up. My younger brother. He was 6 years old when a border operation came through our village. They told us he died in crossfire. His jaw moved. I can't unhear what I've heard since I've been here. My name is Tunda, I said. He blinked, nodded slowly. The analysis comes back tomorrow, he said. If anything doesn't match, Danladi will know. And then? They don't retire equipment, Tunda. They decommission it. He walked away. I stood at the water tanks and let that word sit in my chest. Decommission. The word for when a tool reaches the end of its use. It happened at the evening meal count. All personnel, standard procedure, every man present and accounted for. I was standing at the back of the formation when Danladi walked the line. He stopped in front of me. He looked at me for the first time all day. And what was in his eyes was not contempt. It was nothing. The way you look at a piece of ground you are about to walk across. 7, he said, northern rotation, 5 in the morning, you're on. Not a question, not an order given to a soldier, an instruction given to equipment. I said, yes, sir. That was what I was trained to say, but something in my mouth went wrong on the second word, just for a fraction of a second. Just long enough that I felt it. Danladi heard it too. He looked at me, really looked at me, the first time in 11 years he had bothered, and his eyes narrowed. Problem 7? 50 soldiers were watching. No, sir, I said. He held the look for 3 seconds. Then he turned to Batura beside him. Confirm 7 is operational. I need the asset ready. The asset, in front of 50 men. Confirmed, sir. 7 is operational. Danladi moved on. Then Gata, who had been watching, who was always watching for exactly this kind of thing, said it loud enough for the whole formation to hear. Don't worry, 7. If they upgrade to a newer model, maybe they'll put you out to pasture. Laughter. Not small, not contained. It spread across the formation, from 1 man to 3 to 10, until it became something shared, something accepted, something official. 50 men, laughing at me. Not one of them looked away. They were watching, waiting, for me to confirm it, that I was what they said I was. I did not move. I did not blink. But something inside me, something that had been buried under 11 years of obedience, shifted. Not cracked, shifted, like a locked door, finally deciding it could open. Gata took a step closer, still smiling. He wanted more. He wanted to see it land. "Say something," he said, "or did they forget to program that part?" The laughter spread. Not small, not contained. It moved through the formation like permission had just been granted. 50 men laughing at me. Not one of them looked away. Not one. They wanted to see it. They wanted to see if I would accept it, confirm it, become it. Danladi did not stop it. He stood there, watching, allowing it. That was the moment something inside me stopped obeying. Not slowly, not gently, it just stopped. I stepped forward. One step. The laughter broke, not faded, cut, like something had snapped in the air. I walked straight past the line. Every eye followed. No one spoke, no one moved, straight to Gata. He was still smiling, but it wasn't the same smile anymore, not full, not certain. I stopped in front of him, close, too close. "Say it again." Quiet, flat, dead. Gata blinked, just once. I was joking. No, a beat. "Say it again." Silence, heavy. All around us men were watching, not laughing anymore, waiting. Gata tried to hold the smile. It broke, right there, in front of everyone. I said, his voice failed him, cracked, not loud, but enough. Enough for the men closest to hear it. Enough for the ones behind to feel it. I leaned in, slow, controlled. If I stop being what they built, a pause. "You will be the first thing I choose." I stepped back. Gata didn't move, didn't speak, didn't look at anyone. And for the first time since I arrived in that camp, someone else was standing where I had always stood, alone, in front of everyone. Then I turned, and I looked at Danladi, not past him, at him, for the first time in 11 years. I held his eyes, and he did not speak. He didn't correct it, didn't shut it down, didn't restore order. He just stood there, watching, calculating, but something had already slipped. Something small, something final. The room knew it. They felt it. Authority had cracked, and everyone saw it happen. Later, alone in the dark outside my quarters, I stood with the photograph in my pocket, and I thought about Danladi's face when he said it. The asset, not even 7. The asset. Like I was a vehicle, a stockpile, a number on a manifest. I had been standing right in front of him. I thought, they are going to find out what I am. Not now, but soon. The alarm hit at 11 that night. Not the standard breach tone, the double burst, close and moving. I was out of my quarters in 4 seconds. Halima grabbed the back of my shirt. "How many?" "Don't know, stay here. No light." She released me. Her eyes were fully awake in the dark. I went out. The camp was fracturing into motion, lights swinging, voices cutting across each other, boots on gravel. I moved west, toward where the terrain said the threat would actually come from. 2 altered at the western wire, 1 already through the gap, moving toward the fuel depot. The second was still at the wire, and it was not charging. I raised my rifle, 30 meters, clean shot. I looked at it through the sights. It was pulling at the fence with both hands, carefully. Like a person trying to open a door they weren't sure they had the right to open. Like something trying to get to somewhere it half remembered. It turned its head. In the half light from the perimeter floods, its face came into focus. I had looked at 32 faces and told myself they were not faces. This one refused. Its eyes were confused. Not empty, not raging. Confused. The way someone looks when they've woken up in a strange place and cannot find the road back. The sound started, low, cycling, unfinished. Not a growl, a person trying to remember a word. Trying and losing it and trying again. My finger was on the trigger. I did not fire. From the east side, shooting erupted. The first altered at the fuel depot. The altered at the wire heard it. Its eyes changed. It wrenched itself backward and disappeared into the dark. I lowered the rifle. I stood at the wire and I felt the space where the trigger pull had not been. First time in 11 years I had made that choice. It was a very small thing. It was the largest thing I had ever done. The post-incident briefing was at 2 in the morning. Dan Lardy was running it when I arrived. Unit 7, Western Position, report. 1 altered at the wire, target retreated north before I could engage. Silence from the room. 10 soldiers around the table. Dan Lardy let the silence build. He used it like a hand around the throat. Before you could engage, he repeated. The gap in my firing line closed. Another silence. 7, he said it slowly. In 11 years, how many shots have you missed because a gap closed? The whole room knew the answer. 0. The question was a knife held flat against my face. Tonight was the first time, I said. Dan Lardy looked at me for 5 full seconds. Dismissed. I walked out. Behind me, I heard him say something low to the officer beside him. The tone of a man checking whether his equipment had gone faulty. I came back to my quarters at 2:30 in the morning. The walk across the compound took 4 minutes. 4 minutes of keeping my pace normal, my shoulders level, my face doing nothing. Because Dan Lardy was still awake in the command tent, and the light was on, and the silhouette in the window was watching the compound. I kept walking. I did not look at the window. I went inside. Halima was upright in the chair. She had heard everything, every shot, every running boot, every vehicle, and she had not moved. You didn't fire, she said. No. Why? I sat on the cot, put my hands on my knees. Its eyes, the one at the wire, it wasn't hunting. It was trying to get somewhere, like someone who woke up in the wrong place. Tunde, she leaned forward. They all were, every single one, every altered you've ever hunted, all 32, they all woke up in the wrong place. 32, the number had always been a count, a tally. Sitting in that room, it became 32 people. I killed them. One of them looked at me, not angry, not afraid, like he knew me, like he was trying to remember something. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the trigger. And the worst part, they were trying to speak, not attack, not run, speak. And I pulled the trigger anyway. The words came out before I could stop them. I stood up, then stopped halfway, like my body didn't know what to do with it. They were trying to speak, I said. Halima didn't respond. They all made that sound. I could hear it, all of them, one after the other, 32 times. I heard it. Silence. I just ignored it. That landed hard. I crossed to the window, checked the angle of the command tent. The silhouette was still there, still watching. The tracking analysis, I said. Dan Lardy pulled it forward. It comes back today. How long? Hours, maybe less. I turned. He was watching the compound just now. Halima's breathing changed, just slightly, just enough. We move now, she said. You can barely... I can move. 300 kilometers northeast. I have transport, water, 3 checkpoints handled. What I don't have is someone who knows the terrain and can get inside. She looked at me. I need you. You need a weapon, I said. No. Her voice cut. I need a person who has spent 11 years being used as a weapon to make one decision, one for himself. She reached into her bag. Second photograph, held it out. I took it. A group of children, concrete room, between 5 and 10 years old, their faces neutral the way faces go neutral when the person behind them has been taught that showing things costs too much. I recognized the look. I had worn it for 11 years, my own face 8 times over. Every minute I stood here was a minute they were still inside. At least 4 are still there, Halima said. Then we need to stop talking, I said. I picked up my rifle. I found Tambari at 5:30 in the morning, East Perimeter Watch. I came up behind him the way I always moved, and he heard me anyway. He spun with his hand on the rifle. He saw me. He breathed. Analysis comes back at 8, he said. Dan Lardy told Bature to flag anything unusual from your last 48 hours. That includes last night. I need a disturbance at the south perimeter at 7, 20 minutes, 1 false report, that's all. Where are you going? Northeast. He was quiet. The eastern sky was beginning to separate from the dark. My brother, he said. His voice changed. Smaller, younger. the voice of the person he had been before this place. Will you look for him? I will look for everything, I promise you that. He stood in the early dark, and I watched him make a decision that could cost him everything. 7, he said, 20 minutes. He turned back to the perimeter. I turned back toward my quarters. Crossing the compound, I passed Gata coming off a late post. He saw me. He stopped. He looked at me the way he always looked. And then he said it loud enough for anyone awake to hear. Early morning for the unit. Must be tired from running on all fours. I stopped walking. I turned. He was grinning. I looked at that grin. 11 years of that face, 11 years of separate trays and pulled back feet, and the word it said like a period at the end of every sentence. I thought about the photograph in my pocket. My mother's face, the small laughing boy. Not here, not him, not now. Because I had somewhere to be. I turned and I walked toward the vehicle, and I felt the full weight of 11 years at my back, and I let it push me forward instead of down. We left just after 7. Plain utility truck, no markings. I drove. Tambari's South Perimeter report hit at exactly 7. I heard the response, voices, 2 vehicles, boots moving south, and we went through the western motor pool exit while every head in the camp was turned the wrong way. I kept checking the side mirror, nothing behind us. Stop checking the mirror, Halima said. I think I should be checking the mirror. If they're following us, they're not doing it obviously. You'll slow your reaction time. I stopped checking the mirror. I did not stop thinking about what was behind us. The altered at the wire last night, I said. The one I didn't shoot. Do you know who it was? She was quiet, large, moving carefully. Making the sound, I said. The sound is what's left when the modifications break the language centers. They can't form words. But something keeps trying. His name might have been Ibrahim, partial match to a disappearance from Katsina. Ibrahim, the one I did not shoot, and the 32 I did, every one of them making that sound, trying to say something. I told myself it was noise, made myself believe it was noise. 11 years of making myself believe it was noise. How long have you known about me specifically? I said. 11 months. And before you found me, what were you doing? Building the case. While I was still killing them. She turned her head and looked at me. Yes, she said. I let that sit. You're going to keep checking the mirror, she said. Yes, I said. Malam Sul met us at the edge of the village. Old man, white temples. Still, he gave us water, food, handwritten notes on checkpoint timing. You are one of theirs, he said. I was. My daughter was 9 years old. Border operation 7 years ago. They told us it was crossfire. His hands were completely steady. There is no crossfire in this country, he said. There is only the program and everything it swallows. He went back inside. I stood at his door. His daughter, Tambari's brother, my mother, 9 confirmed children, everyone in between that nobody had confirmed yet. The program was not a project. It was a machine. And for 11 years, I had been its most efficient moving part. I went back to the truck. Halima was in the passenger seat, jaw tight. What? I said. Nothing. Tell me. At the second checkpoint, there's someone new, not the usual contact. And it might be fine. Or the contact was compromised 2 days ago, and we don't know it yet. You were going to tell me this when? I'm telling you now. You're telling me 30 minutes from the gate after we already left the only cover we had. Yes, I started the truck. The checkpoint passages took 4 hours. At the first, smooth. At the second, wrong face. Not the person Halima had described. A man. Younger. He came to the window and looked at both of us, and I had my hand on the rifle before I knew I had moved it. Halima said something to him in a dialect I did not fully follow. He responded. She said something else. He looked at me for a long second, then handed her the water containers. Folded paper inside, same as expected. He walked away. I drove through. Backup contact, Halima said. She was pulled for her own safety 2 days ago. Updated rotation is the same. Doctor's still inside. Would you have told me if I had turned back? She looked at me. Would you have turned back? I thought about the children in that photograph. No, I said. Then you had the same information that mattered. I did not argue with her, but I did not like it. We reached the compound perimeter at 7 in the evening. Sun falling, light flat and orange and brutal. The compound grey and low and functional behind a sandstone ridge 2 kilometers out. I stopped the truck. 4 children, right now, inside that building, in restraints designed to be comfortable because someone had put thought into making the imprisonment feel humane, which was almost worse. I thought about the sound, the cycling sound, the 32. I thought about Malam Sul's 9-year-old daughter. I thought about a small boy laughing at something outside the frame. I got out. Halima looked at me. Tunde. My name, still landing somewhere deep. Come back out. 45 minutes, I said. I went. I cut the wire in 40 seconds. Along the eastern wall, counted the guard's pace. Slack walk of someone who had been doing this for months and stopped believing anything would happen. I went through the east door at 34 minutes past 7. White corridors, fluorescent hum, the smell of something biological and wrong underneath the cleaning fluid. Northeast, archive room, bypass device, 9 seconds. I went in, metal shelving, files, hard drives, workstation. I entered the code, started the transfer, 4 minutes. I went to the physical files, first folder I touched. Medical records, modification protocols, subject assessments. The language of science applied to the insides of children's lives. I turned to subject designations, column of intakes, column of ages, intake age 4, intake age 5, intake age 4, intake age 6. My eyes moved down and stopped. Subject intake age 4 years. Modification response exceptional. Neurological stability above projected baseline. Phase 2 recommendation accelerated. Designation Unit 7. I stood in that archive room and something broke in me that I could not name and could not stop. They had written it like a product evaluation. Exceptional. Accelerated. I was 4 years old. They did not kidnap me. They invested in me. Don't lie to yourself. If you were in my position for 11 years, you would have done the same thing. Or you think you're different. The name on the next intake form stopped me. My finger had been moving to turn the page. It stopped, pressed flat on the paper without me deciding to press it. Haruna Aliyu. Same family name as mine. Village of origin, the same village. Intake age 17, taken 4 years after me from the same place by the same operation. Modified, unstable, reclassified, neutralized, Hunt 9, Unit 7. I had killed him. Not in a fight, not in confusion, clean, measured. 2 shots. I remembered his face now, the way he looked at me. Not like an enemy. Like he knew something. Like he was trying to say something. And I had pulled the trigger anyway. I stood in that archive room and I did not move for 10 full seconds. Then I put it under my arm. My elbow knocked the shelving unit. Metal rang. I held still and listened. Nothing moved in the corridor. I photographed every page within reach, grabbed a physical folder. Transfer completed. I pulled the device. 8 minutes left on the rotation. Then I heard the sound. North end of the corridor, low, cycling, unfinished. I stopped breathing. I had heard that sound 32 times in the open desert. I had fired before it could finish, every single time. This time it was coming from behind a door, 20 meters away, in a lit corridor, inside a building. I went to the door, medical grade, heavy, keypad lock, no bypass, 8 minutes, 7 now. I took 3 steps back. I hit the door at the lock point with everything I had. My shoulder exploded, white burst in my vision. I hit it again and again. The third impact sent pain up my neck and my vision swam and the frame gave and the door swung open. I went through. 4 beds, against the wall, 4 children in medical restraints. Wrists, ankles, soft padded and institutional. Not cruel in the way of chain or rope. Worse than that, because someone had put thought into making the imprisonment feel humane. Between 6 and 11 years old. All thin. They were just children. Not subjects, not threats. Children, the same age I was when they took me, and suddenly, I wasn't looking at them anymore. I was looking at myself. 4 times, trapped in that room, waiting for someone to decide whether I was worth saving. One of them, a boy, 8 or 9, wide forehead, large eyes, looked directly at me. He did not call out, he did not reach toward me. He looked at me the way I had looked at everything my whole life. The look of a person who has been taught that what they feel does not matter. I recognized it the way you recognize your own face. My throat did something I was not expecting. I crossed the room in 4 steps and cut every restraint. Fast, my hands moving before I had consciously decided anything. And I said something in a voice I had never heard come out of my own body before. Not flat, not controlled, something that came from under all of that. You're coming with me, right now, all of you. We are leaving. The boy was on his feet before I finished the sentence. The others came up slower, shaky. The smallest one, a girl, 6 years old at most, looked at her freed wrists like she didn't know what to do without the restraints. I picked her up. She was lighter than she should have been. My hands went around her, and I felt how light she was, and I stopped moving. Just for a second. Just 1 second. My vision blurred slightly at the edges, something in my throat closed. I had never felt that before in my life. I did not know what it was. I know now. I pushed through it. I grabbed another by the hand. Fast, close, don't stop. We went. Getting 4 children through a cut wire gap in 7 minutes is not something you train for. I did it anyway. The boy kept pace without being told. The others moved on instinct, the pressure of my hand, the urgency in my voice. We were 30 meters from the wire when a maker stopped walking. Just stopped. Stood in the scrubland and looked back at the compound. 5 minutes on the rotation. 4.5. I went back, crouched in front of his face. I did not whisper. There is nothing back there for you. Move. Something in his eyes shifted. He moved. We hit the wire at 6 minutes 20. I pushed them through the gap one by one. The boy went last. He stopped. Looked back at the compound for 1 second. Then came through. I was halfway through the gap when I heard a door open somewhere inside the compound. Not the exterior guard. Inside. A light came on, yellow, institutional, in a window on the north side. I pulled myself through the wire and I ran. Behind us, the exterior guard completed his rotation. I heard his footsteps reach the northeast corner, the exact point where the gap was, 30 seconds after we cleared it. 30 seconds. That was all the space between what happened and what could have happened. Halima heard us. She came around the truck and she stopped. She looked at the children. Then she looked at me. Something passed through her face that belonged only to her. The face of someone who has been carrying something enormous for a very long time and is, for the first time, allowed to set it down. 45 minutes, she said. I used 42, I said. The boy walked straight up to Halima, stood in front of her, studied her with eyes that had seen too much. Are you from outside? He said. Halima crouched down, her side on fire, I could see it, and she came down to his level. Yes, she said, I'm from outside. He thought about this. Is it different? He said. Outside. She looked at his face for a long time. Yes, she said, it's very different. We drove through the night. No headlights. Halima navigated from memory. The children sat in the back and watched the black desert move past them with the silence of children who had learned that being quiet was a survival tool. The broadcast went out at 4 in the morning. 11 minutes. Files, records, protocols, subject designations, ages, names, photographs, going simultaneously to 17 recipients, journalists, medical ethics bodies, human rights organizations, the senator in Abuja. Done, Halima said. It's out. It's already out. I drove. At 10 minutes past 6, the military radio crackled. Dan Ladi. Same voice, same flat control. But something new underneath it. A tightness I had never once heard from him in 11 years. The tightness of a man realizing his property is not coming back. Unit 7, report your position immediately. You are ordered to return to Camp Doka. This is a direct order. I looked at the road ahead. I picked up the radio. I held it. Danladi's voice again. Harder now. 7. You are military property under active deployment. Whatever has been said to you, whatever you think you know, you are malfunctioning. Return to base and this ends quietly. That is your only option. Military property. Malfunctioning. 11 years of my life in 2 words. From the back of the truck, the boy's voice, quiet, unprompted. My name is Kofi. Then another, Nadia. And a small voice, barely there, Aisha. And a final voice, Emeka. Kofi, Nadia, Aisha, Emeka. 4 children who had been numbers saying their names in the dark. I pressed the transmit button. I started to speak. Stopped, started again. You took me from my mother when I was 4 years old. You buried my name. You pointed me at 32 people who came from the same place I came from, and you called that a mission. I paused, 1 breath. I am not coming back. And this time, you don't get to decide what I am. This is where people split. Some of you think I'm right. Some of you think I'm a traitor. Say it clearly. Which one am I? Static. Then Danladi's voice, stripped of everything now, all of it gone. Unit 7, if you do not return immediately, I will... I set the radio down. From the back, Kofi's voice, 1 word. Good. Like he had been waiting his whole life for someone to say exactly that. 2 minutes later, headlights in the side mirror. 2 military pickups, moving fast to cut off the junction. They reached the junction first, Halima said. Not if I don't go to the junction. I read the terrain. Dry stream bed to the east, too narrow for their vehicles. You know this terrain. I hunted it for 11 years. For the first time, that is going to work for something worth working for. I turned east. The wadi was exactly where I knew it would be. I drove into it, and the walls rose on both sides, and the military vehicles fell away behind us, and I drove northeast through the dark toward the people who were waiting for what we were carrying. In the back, Kofi climbed forward and sat between me and Halima. He was quiet for a while, then, the ones in the desert, the ones you hunted. Yes. Did you know what they were? No. Do you know now? Yes. He looked forward at the dark wadi walls. What happens to the ones still out there? Halima told him. The broadcast, the reclassification, the fight that was coming. She said it with certainty. Kofi listened. Then, okay. The bravest word I had ever heard. The rendezvous building was concrete, plain, at the edge of a settlement. 3 people outside. A doctor with a medical bag came out immediately when she saw the children. 2 men took the files and the data device. A man I did not know crossed the yard to me. He did not speak. He extended his hand. I shook it. He looked me in the face. He nodded once. The nod of someone who understands what a thing cost. That single nod meant more to me than 11 years of good. Halima let the doctor look at her side. The doctor said hospital. Halima said not yet. They went back and forth. I stood at the edge of the building and looked west. Somewhere back there, Camp Doka, Danladi. The blank concrete room with 1 metal cot, 1 wooden chair, nothing on the walls. 11 years of a life that was never mine, lived in a name that was never mine. I thought about Tambari. I went to Halima. Corporal Bello Tambari, Camp Doka. He helped me leave. He'll be exposed when they review the South Perimeter report. She was already reaching for her phone. He has a brother, I said. Taken at 6. Would be 12 or 13 now. She looked up from the phone. We both looked across the yard. Kofi was standing in the doorway of the building, watching us. 12 years old, wide forehead, large eyes, taken at 6. I walked across the yard. I crouched down in front of him. Kofi, I said, do you remember your family name? He looked at me the way he looked at everything that might give or take. Tambari, he said. I did not tell him everything right away. Later, when the building was quieter, I sat beside him on the floor and I told him about a young soldier at an eastern perimeter who had lost his brother at 6 and spent years inside a military camp looking for the truth of it. Kofi listened without moving. Then, is he alive? Yes. He nodded, the nod of someone choosing to believe something because the alternative is worse. After a while, he said, "What are you going to do now? With your life?" I told him I didn't know yet. He accepted that. Then, "I want to learn to swim. I've never seen the ocean. I want to go there. I want to know how to survive in it." He said it the way children say things when they have been freed from having to say only safe things. Clean, direct. This exists, and I want it. I had spent 11 years not being allowed to want anything. "I'll learn with you," I said. He looked at me. "Do you know how?" "No." He thought about this. "Okay," he said, "we'll figure it out." The broadcast broke in waves, first inside Nigeria, then international. By the time military command began trying to suppress it, 11 separate organizations had independent copies. Journalists were filing, medical ethics bodies were calling for investigation. Danladi issued a statement. He called me a compromised military asset manipulated by hostile operatives. He called the children a classified security matter. He described Project Kankara as a defense program that had been misrepresented. He said all of this from behind a desk, in a pressed uniform, in the language of a man who has spent his entire career describing human destruction as administrative necessity. He was arrested 17 days later, not by the army, by a civilian oversight authority that had been building a case against Northeastern Military Command for 3 years and never had enough. Now they had everything: the files, the records, the testimony of 4 children who could describe exactly what had been done to them, and a former program asset who gave 31 hours of testimony over 4 days. I told them everything, every hunt, every target, every number, every name I had. 32. I said them out loud, every one. I did not let the record reduce them to targets. On the 3rd day of my testimony, Danladi was brought into the building, a different room. But the facility was not large, and at some point, moving between sessions, I passed him in the corridor. Civilian clothes, no uniform, no rank insignia. Without them, he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, in some other dimension. The thing that had made him large was gone. He saw me. He stopped walking. For a moment, I thought he was going to speak. His mouth opened, his chin moved. A lawyer beside him put a hand on his arm. What came out was not words. It was a sound. Short, involuntary. The sound of a man who spent 30 years never being caught at anything, suddenly caught. Then the lawyer steered him forward and he went. He did not look back. I stood in the corridor and watched him walk away, smaller with every step. I thought, that is what it looks like when the only thing holding a man together is his authority and someone takes it. I went back to my room. I kept talking. On the 4th day, Danladi was brought into a formal review session. I was not there, but one of the investigators told me what happened. The room held 9 people, oversight officials, legal observers, 2 representatives from an international medical body. Danladi sat across the table in civilian clothes, his lawyer beside him. He opened with a prepared statement, controlled, correct, fluent. He had trained for rooms like this his whole career. He was good at it. For the first 10 minutes, he was very good at it. He used phrases like operational necessity and threat mitigation framework and classified humanitarian protocol. He made eye contact with each official in turn. He looked like a man who expected to walk out of this room. Then one of the officials placed a photograph on the table. A photograph of the children's ward inside the compound. The beds, the restraints. 4 small sets of restraints on 4 small beds. Beside the photograph, she placed a printed sheet. 32 names. In a column, ages at intake, classification codes, termination dates cross-referenced in red against my hunt logs. The official said, "Major Danladi, can you tell this panel what these individuals were classified as before the program modified them?" These designations were assigned under classified national security. I am not asking about their designations. I am asking what they were before the program took them. What were they? The program operated under a legal framework that... Were they people, Major Danladi? The room went quiet. The operational framework classified these individuals as, were they children, some of them, before the program? Were they children? Something happened in Danladi's face, small, fast, a contraction like something behind his eyes flinching. Then the control came back. But it came back a half-second too slow, and everyone in the room saw the gap. The subjects in that facility were one of the international representatives, the woman who had been writing continuously, stopped writing, put her pen down, looked at Danladi and did not look away. He saw it. He heard the pen go down, the silence that replaced the scratching, and something in his delivery stuttered. The children. He stopped. He had said it. He started again, immediately. The subject, the program designated them as, but the word was already in the room. He had said the children, in a formal government review session, on record, in front of 9 witnesses, and then tried to take it back. You cannot take it back. The official leaned forward slightly. She did not raise her voice. Major Danladi, she said, you just called them children. He did not respond. She did not move on. Were they children when you took them? Danladi looked at his lawyer. His lawyer did not look back. The program operated under classified acquisition protocols that is not what I asked. Her voice did not change. Not harder, not softer, exactly the same. That was what made it unbearable. Were they children when you took them, yes or no? The room was very still. Danladi's hand pressed flat against the table. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He did not answer. Nobody spoke. Not one person. Not toward Danladi, away from him. The small instinctive movement of a person who does not want to be near something that is happening. The official waited. Danladi looked at the table. He did not look up. He did not answer the question. He would not answer it for the rest of the session. His lawyer spoke instead, about procedures, classification authority, proper legal context. It was competent. It was practiced. It did not matter, because 9 people had just watched a man who had spent 30 years commanding the silence of others go completely silent when asked a single yes or no question about whether the people he modified and discarded and hunted down had once been children. He came into that room as a commander. He left it as a man who could not say no, and would not say yes, and let the silence answer for him. After it was over, the room stayed quiet for 11 seconds. 11 seconds of silence in a formal government hearing. The investigator said she had been doing this work for 20 years. She had never seen 11 seconds like that before. I did not respond. I just thought that is 11 seconds more than any of the 32 ever got. Dr. Amina Garba, 3 years inside, the one who sent the rotation that got me through the compound door, cooperated fully. Her testimony closed the last gaps. When she described the program's origins, its child targeting methodology, its internal decision-making, the case became impossible to deny. She said this in her testimony, on the record. The program considered Unit 7 its greatest success. I disagree completely. Unit 7 is the program's greatest exposure. They built him to be theirs entirely, and in the end, when it mattered, he chose something else. That is not what they created. That is what survived what they created. Danladi's sentencing came 18 months after his arrest. I was not in the room. I was at a rehabilitation facility 500 kilometers south, where Kofi and Nadia and Aisha and Emeka were going through the long, slow work of coming back from what had been done to them. The doctors were honest about what that meant. Some things could be undone, some things could be managed, some things would be part of who they were for the rest of their lives. Kofi, when a doctor explained the limitations, said, "Okay, what can we do?" Not despair, not rage. What can we do? I sat in that facility and I thought about what the program could not remove from him. Even after everything, even after years of restraints and concrete rooms and being treated as a subject. The part that asked, "What can we do?" That was there before they got him. That was there before they got me. That is what they could not reach. Tambari and Kofi stood in the same room for the first time on a Wednesday morning. I was there. Tambari came through the door. Kofi looked up from the table. For a moment, neither of them moved. 2 people at the edge of something enormous, making sure it was real before they fell into it. Then Kofi stood up. That was all, just stood up. Tambari crossed the room in 4 steps and put both arms around his brother, and I turned to look at the ceiling, and I breathed through my nose, and I left them in that moment completely. Some things do not belong to a story. Some things belong only to the people inside them. I was allowed to be near it. That was enough. They never found all of the altered. Some were recovered, some were helped, modifications reversed where medicine could reach, managed where it could not. Some were found dead in the scrubland. Some were never found. Ibrahim from Katsina, the one at the wire, the one I did not shoot, was found alive 12 kilometers north of the compound, 3 weeks after the broadcast. Disoriented, malnourished, neurological damage that had progressed past full reversal. He was alive. He was being treated. He had a name again. That is not nothing. That is the opposite of nothing. I think about the 32. I think about them by name where I have names, by face where I only have faces. I think about Isa from Kano, 19 years old when they took him, 3 years inside before the modifications broke, who was number 32 on my count on the night a bleeding woman came to my door and said my name. I think about Haruna Aliyu, who was 17 when they took him, who shared my name and my village and the same stretch of road, who I killed on a Tuesday morning without hesitation and logged as Hunt 9 and never thought about again, until I did. I carry that, not as punishment, as the debt I owe 32 people who never got to finish what they were trying to say. Some nights I still hear the sound, that low cycling sound, the one I trained myself not to think about for 11 years. I let myself hear it now. It's the least I can do. I was built to not feel things, not carry things. They were very good at that. And still, something survived. Project Kankara's dissolution was announced in a statement so clean and institutional it could have been a weather report. Enhanced military trial program. Decommissioned, personnel to be reassigned or prosecuted. The word children appeared 0 times in that statement. 0. I gave statements to 3 journalists the day the announcement came out. I used the word children every time I opened my mouth. I will keep using it until it is in every record that touches this. My full name is Tunde Aliyu. I was taken from my mother at 4 years old, conditioned, modified, used as a weapon for 11 years. I killed 32 people who were victims of the same system that built me. I am not the program's success. I am the proof that it failed at the only thing that mattered. The name was still there. Because a name is not just a sound. A name is the first thing given to you before anyone has decided what you are for. They took everything else. They could not take that. A bleeding woman came to my door and said it out loud, and 11 years of conditioning, 11 years of Unit 7 and it, and the asset and performed as expected, cracked. All of it, at once, because of a name. I am Tunde Aliyu. I was always Tunde Aliyu. They forgot that a buried thing is not a dead thing. They forgot that some things grow in the dark. They forgot that a weapon with a name is no longer just a weapon. It is a person. And a person eventually decides. Some people say I was a victim of the system. Others say I still pulled the trigger 32 times. Both of them are right. Knowing the truth does not change what I did. It only means I have to carry it with my eyes open. 32 names, all mine. They trained me to kill monsters. They never expected me to realize I was one of them. They were not monsters. They were people. And I was the weapon they used to erase them. Not anymore.